Hi, good afternoon, Rev.
Courage in Crisis. I am the Reverend Algernon Lewis. I am the chairman of the Moravian Church, East and West Indies Province, and I am out of Antigua. We've been having this series of conversations about faith and mental health, and now we are sort of pivoting to conversations about faith, health, and wellness as we continue to respond to the COVID crisis. We've dealt with a number of topics. Last time we were talking about the theological implications of COVID-19. And before that, we were talking about managing your finances in COVID-19. Today, we have a very interesting conversation planned for you, a conversation about food and faith. If you wish, food security and faith. Now, I am no agriculturalist. I have absolutely no expertise, and I do not get into much agricultural things because I realize I really don't have a passion for it. But we have two people on this panel who are passionate about food security, who are passionate about agriculture, who are passionate about urban and rural development. And so I will have them to lead us this afternoon. We have, out of Antigua, Miss Jennifer Maynard. She's the first Methodist to be appearing on the program. Welcome. The Methodists and the Moravians always do a good thing together. And we have also and Jennifer is in Antigua, and we have out of St. Kitts, Lindbergh Bell, who is from Zion in St. Kitts, and he's also very much involved in agriculture. To both of you, welcome to the panel this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to the breadth of things that you're going to share with us. Now, we're talking about food security and faith. In some ways, those things don't seem to go together. But let's just deal with the food security part. Can you, Jennifer, tell us what is food security? And I'm going to ask you the same question, Lindbergh. Tell us, what is food security? When we say food security, what are we really talking about? Jennifer, go ahead, please.
Okay. When we say food security, we are referring to guaranteed access to the requirements, the food requirements of the individual. There is also tied into that little bit of thing, food security and as well nutrition security, because you can have access to quantities of food, but you may not actually have the appropriate quantities of the various daily minimum requirements. So there's food security tied in with nutritional security. Food security can happen at three levels. It happens at the household level, where a number of individuals who eat together, who cook together, who live together, have security within that place that they function together. And that is household food security. There is community food security, and it can be varying communities. For example, it could be the Rastafari community in a particular one of our territories. It could be the community on an island, on one of our islands. For example, the community on Petit Martinique, or the community on Barbados, or the community on Nevis, and a part of a country that is separated as an island. And then there's national food security, which is the security which the country, the nation of Antigua and Barbuda, the nation of Trinidad and Tobago experiences or enjoys. However, food security at any of the three levels can be compromised not only by the lack of the food items, but by some poor distribution nationally. Maybe there's a river that has cut off a section of a country, or where a community is being deprived by some cause, whether it be a real, a natural, a man-made, or other. And it can happen right within the family, the household, where a particular member or set of members and don't have access to particular types or classes of food. So it happens at various levels and can be denied by various manifestations within each of the three levels.
Good. Lindbergh, do you want to add anything to that in terms of food security?
I would concur with Jennifer in terms of the definition itself of food security, just having access to enough food, enough nutritional food, always. What I would add more to what she's saying, in particular here, when we're looking at food security, we need to definitely consider why is it necessary for us to have food security. We start from the simple basic, everyone must eat. You must eat to survive. And it is that it's one of the fundamental human rights that we have. We must have access to food. We look at it in terms of food security, it goes hand in hand with ensuring wellness and preventing sicknesses. As you know, we in the Caribbean, we are prone to many non-communicable diseases. And a lot of it comes from our nutrition, in terms of what we eat and how we eat. The food security itself, what it does, it creates also self-sufficiency in terms of creating jobs. For us in the Caribbean, it is a way that we transfer culture from the older person to the younger persons in terms of that. So that is definitely a part of it also. What definitely must consider also in food security is that, I think the quotation somebody gave recently, eat what we grow. I think it stuck with me, eat what we grow. And it is in growing our food, we are ensuring our own food stability and sustainability, but more we control now what it is we eat, as we don't have any control over those pre-packaged, pre-processed, and all the kind of food, whatever the percent was what we're taking. But if you're producing some of your own, you don't have control over that. That's just to add what Jennifer was saying.
Okay, so why is that discussion important now? And there's a two-pronged question. I'm going to start back with you, Lindbergh. Why is that discussion important now? And why are we adding faith? Why is the church involved in this discussion?
I think to some part, the church has always been in the discussion. When anything crisis happens, the first place everybody runs is to the church. That's the reality. A hurricane hits, prayer. We have some shooting, jump to the church. We have that. But it is more important, the discussion now, because within the present context of the COVID-19 pandemic, what it has exposed to us is our inability to feed ourselves. I'm going to use St. Kitts for an example, St. Kitts Nevis. We rely heavily on the importation of food from St. Vincent, St. Lucia, from the Windward Islands, practically on a weekly basis. Whereas if you looked at back in the 70s, up to as far as the early 80s, we were exporters of those kind of foods. We're now basically importers. I think it was in January of this year, no, not January, late last year, a presentation was made by our Director of Agriculture. He stated that 20% of what we consume, we produce. Now, that is very alarming. 20%. What that means is that of the basic food that we have on a plate, only 20% of that is consumed here. Now, we are now faced with a challenge now. If our borders are closed, boats cannot come in, what are we going to do? Now we go back to where we need to have food security. But the church in itself must now, I will not say rise up, but take its pivotal role in our society in terms of ensuring that, one, we can look after ourselves. The church itself can make a contribution in terms of the direction we go in terms of food security. And it is that as a faith-based organization, we not only seek to who can afford or who can afford to pay, but also more about equity. Everybody must eat. Everybody must have. Not only person who can afford to buy the food. So it is that from a faith-based organization as we are, we see ourselves more as persons who can equally share, equally produce, equally assist, or even as Jennifer mentioned before, equally distribute whatever it is that is necessary for this sustainability of food.
Right. Jennifer, still, why is the church involved, or why is the conversation necessary now?
Okay. The conversation is necessary now in this time, in the season of COVID, because this is a different phenomenon. We've had hurricanes, we've had earthquakes. Hurricanes have decimated a particular island. but the aftermath of the hurricane is known. We know when it will end, and we know when we'll start back.
Mm-hmm.
We've had earthquakes, and an earthquake can destroy a port or destroy or cause a landslide that separates an area from another area. But again, it is within man's power to move this obstacle. What we're dealing with in the season of COVID is a new and unknown illness of pandemic proportion, which, because it's new, it is a disease that is mutating, a pathogen that's mutating. And so we don't know when this cutoff from food distribution will happen. And because it's pandemic, we don't know who else outside of us will face a national food crisis. So we are all individually and simultaneously in a food security, a compromised food security situation. So we are actually, because of a pandemic disease, we are in a pandemic potential food insecurity. And so we have nothing else to do but to actually step up to this plate, and we have to preempt what could be disastrous by having the conversation and trying to see where we can individually and as communities activate. Now, why is the church involved in this? Of all the community groups that exist in our societies, the faith-based community groups have managed to keep contact with their members and their membership and their community. And so the church, naturally, as Lindbergh said, has been originally a part of some of these needs, because I'm sure pretty much many of our church congregations have a family that we serve or a set of destitute people that we run a soup kitchen for. But in general, a faith community is also a caring community, and is also a community that responds to need. And so it is very natural for the church to, one, be expected, but for the leadership of the church to recognize that it has a role and not wait for people to start dropping with hunger to begin to scurry for soup kitchens and lunches. It is part of the church mandate that was given: feed my lambs. There's the spiritual feeding, but also the body feeding, the feeding of the body.
Okay, so I'm hearing some things. Food security is because we can't just depend on external sources. We need to be able to do this within our territories, be able to feed ourselves. And that's a part of the mandate that Jesus has given to us as a church. I like what you just said, Jennifer, about us. It's a part of our mandate. It's a part of who we are as a church. And I'm hoping that more and more people can get that message, that this is not something we do on the side, but it's part of core values to look towards stuff like food security. So if we're going to do that, though, you mentioned earlier, Jennifer, about home food security, community, and nation. So it's like starting at your Jerusalem, Samaria, Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. We start at the home. Where do we go in terms of trying to get this food security? Let's just say both of you have made the case to everybody that you need to do food security. You're talking to somebody like me, that I have plants outside that don't get watered. It's like I plan to water them, but they don't get watered. It happens. I need to work on that. So what do we do in terms of trying to secure our food as from the family perspective? We can start with you, Jennifer, and then come to you, Lindbergh. If you can give 2 things, Lindbergh will come after with 2 more.
If Families are individual members of the church community. Families may be facing this crisis and we are not aware. From the church point of view, I think that you would need to, at a planning level, establish in this particular season of COVID, who and where your vulnerable households might be or where they are. And I have used family and household interchangeably. We'll stick to household because family tends to be assumed to be blood relatives living in the same house, when in fact household may well be the related and unrelated, blood related people that may live around in a yard, because it is typical that Miss Maisie cooks and the little boy for Joan that don't like him other food will come by Miss Maisie. So that if Miss Maisie's family faces a crisis, the little boy for Joan who don't live in the house but eat in the yard will also face a crisis. So we have to determine who is our household and what are their needs and who is part of this household. There's also the person that Jane cooks every Sunday. She cooks for the family, but she cooks for Mrs. Simon down the road. And he is a part of that household by extension, or he's a part of that family and therefore that household. In some places it's defined as people who eat out of the same pot. And so it's really determining what is that communal pot. The communal pot, we have to determine it at our congregation levels. It's not something that can be mandated from on high. You must, when you're cooking, feed your neighbor. It has to start with you identifying who is your family, who is your household, and those who are actually part of the food distribution of the household. Because members of your household may be part of getting help with the washing or being dropped to church. But at this particular time, we have to identify who those people are and determine what is their risk. And secondly, there needs to be, at that household level, and I feel with guidance from the church family and the church community, a discussion as to what are some of the things we can do. Do we have lands? Do we have boxes that we can go things? Do we have lands that we can work on? Do we have people who know how to teach? So it is identifying the vulnerable, these households that will need that securing, and begin to discuss how that household can be secured.
Okay. Lindbergh, you want to add anything to that?
What I would add to what Jennifer was saying, I concur with her in terms of the direction that our churches need to take in terms of having an assessment of who our members are, where they are, what their needs are. But on the other hand, we need to assess also the skills that our members have, because we will be relying on our members to assist in the active development of whatever proposal I may have. It is, we may have someone in there who is in agriculture, but not just agriculture, but is in animal husbandry. So he produces chickens, rabbits, whatever, or someone crop production. We have someone who's actually in crop protection, so he's more in the phytosanitary and so forth. So it is assessing not just what the needs are, but what skills they bring to it. That would be essential also. I'm looking at here now at what method we can use in terms of how we can ensure food security. Jennifer mentioned before, we need to look at the home, community, and then we get at a larger scale. But even looking at all of those, I take it from a different perspective from what we presently have now to reduce the food wastage. Persons in your house, many persons will tell you, sometimes up to 30–40% of whatever they buy goes out in waste. Be it is in the fridge, it's spoiled, they cook too much, so they dump some food that is actually food wasted. We need to also ensure that we have more of our own locally produced food. Then you don't have to wait for somebody outside to bring food into you. You have your own local, whether it is you grow in your yard, as Jennifer said, from a family perspective, or within the community area have. One example she gave was the Rastafarians. And over the years, it's well documented that they themselves consume a lot of what they produce. So they do not face the great challenge that most persons would have. I think also we need to ensure in this whole process of the COVID and while we're going through this and finding solutions, we ensure that we don't create solutions that make the problem worse over a longer period of time. We need to ensure that we produce, but that we produce and manage and create something that is sustainable with what our conditions are.
But before you go on further, Lindbergh, you said we don't create something that basically exacerbates the problem. Mm-hmm. Can you give me an example? Because my mind is going a million miles trying to figure out what like you're talking about.
For example, you may decide, okay, we realize now that we have a deficiency in producing tomatoes. You may say, okay, tomatoes require that you prune the trees, you plant, you do all that stuff. But in your zeal to produce that, what you then do, you deplete your soil for a different type of crop you might need. And the time it would take for that soil to recuperate for you to plant some other kind of crop, you've actually damaged that soil to use. You may say, I'm going to plant sweet potato, which is a root crop. But after you plant the sweet potato, what kind of crop can you now plant, which then replenishes that soil, what you've taken out with the potato? So hence, you need to have a good proper crop rotation system. So where you plant string beans, which puts nitrogen in the soil. You may come in after that with lettuce that takes out nitrogen. You may say, I'm going to put in a tree crop, shallow rooting like a sweet pepper or tomato. Or you may say, okay, well, I want to put in maybe some yams or cassava potato that I'll have to dig up the soil and till it over. So you want to ensure that you're sustainable in terms of how you're planting. Not
so
just plant
you're actually, but Lindbergh, you are throwing a little monkey wrench here, because you are saying that that there has to be a system. So I can't just go out and say, well, I can plant because I feel to plant.
No, you cannot just do that, because you yourself, as much as you may meet your immediate needs today or within the next 3 months, you can in your own create a long-term problem. In your crop production, you may damage the soil crop, the soil itself, that for years after that, you cannot produce the quantity you may get within the short term. Okay. So yes, we need to make sure that we produce, we need to make sure, but we need to make sure we are sustainable, but we need to make sure that not we're just sustainable in terms of the amount of food, but in the production of the food also. Because we can't just produce food just now for this next 3 months. We have to think the immediate, short term, and long term also.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, there's a lot more going into this than just that, oh, I have a green thumb and I want to go out and do stuff.
Yes.
Right? You're saying that.
Yes, it is.
Right. So now that is something else, because I know, for example, recently, and like people got seedlings and so on to plant things. What do you say to those people? Because we're going to come back to the necessity for training, and we want to talk a little bit about that. What do you say to those people who may have just say, yeah, really and truly, I've had to buy all these things. I'm recognizing I don't have food security, and so I have the extra time on my hand, and I'm going to sow some pumpkin and okra or cassava or whatever. What do you say to those people? Jennifer, we can start with you, please.
Okay. The thing is that we are, as we speak, we are fluctuating between national and household.
Right. I want to stick with household. I want to go to household. Because I want the people who are listening to this to derive some benefit for themselves, for their own household. So just pull me back. Remember, I'm not the agriculturalist. My brain is all over the place. So you need to make sure that this stays on track.
Okay. From the household, one of the first things that we actually need to do is look at what we consume on a daily basis and determine what in actual fact is something that can grow. Some of us would know, because some of us would know that we have thrown out a pumpkin seed, a melon seed, a cantaloupe seed, a tomato seed. So some would know, but determine what of the things that I eat that I can produce. And the production, and then the quantity that I need, so that you're going back to what you normally buy from the grocery. And then discuss it with somebody who knows yield, the amount that can be produced. And so you will actually be able to speak with somebody, and they say, well, okay, it's 5 of y'all, you normally buy 10 pounds of tomato and it lasts you 2 weeks. Well, you could probably grow put in 3 tomato plants in a Clorox bottle, 3 Clorox bottles every 3 months, because that will keep you going with tomato for a period. You would know you would need more than, and you could conclude 2 cucumber plants, one pumpkin plant, 1 pumpkin vine, and then in discussion again, it's looking around at how much is around your house, because there's the line, there's the soak away, but then there's that old pile of chairs that you've been planning to do something about. Maybe those chairs might be something that you can actually plant at the foot of the chair and have a vine growing over it, the cucumbers growing over it. So it is a matter of getting with somebody, and as Lindbergh said, people who know are in the communities, and that's where the church can help. That is where the Greenberry Moravian Church or the Calvary Moravian Church or the Bethel Moravian Church can say, listen guys, we're trying to give support to food security. Who are the people in this community, in our faith community, that are skilled livestock, livestock husbandry, fishing, crop production, bees, or whatever. We want to be able to help persons. And it could start off informally with discussions and what one could call clinics, the same way you go to your doctor. These professionals could be available within the church community for questions and answers and guidance. Or
let me pause you there a little bit, Sister Jennifer, because I want to make sure that we get you. So you're saying that if we're going to take on this agricultural thing easy, here's one position we can do as a church. We can access the professionals, the people who have the know-how, and find out also within our congregation who are the people who are interested. In fact, we're trying to get everybody, as many persons as possible within the congregation to say, let's put a little garden together. So you're saying to our congregation, you can take this on as your project to impact your community, to impact food security at a domestic level. We will bring somebody in, you will come, that person will kind of like hold your hand through the process. So you didn't just get a seedling and you go home, but that you get a seedling, you get advice, and that you're able to work through the process in terms of getting something, a proper yield. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
That is what I'm saying, and I'm saying that how it is mobilized and how it is actualized will depend on the circumstances and the context of the various church congregations and their relationship with their individual household membership and the other non-church members. And so it's something that each community has its dynamics, and it can be developed within that dynamics, so that people will feel that I have an interest, I have a need, because we don't want to be walking into people and saying, well, you look like you have plenty land behind there. You should start planting. Because at the end of the day, what we are trying to create is an understanding of our right to food, our control over our food, and our ability to make choices to support or guarantee our own food security within the limits of the resources we have available.
Okay, Lindbergh, you want to jump in on any part of this, please?
What I had noted here, one in particular, as we try to wrap our head around this, what I came up with is that we need to ensure that we do some self-assessment. Now, the self-assessment may be at a domestic or home level or at a church level. At a domestic and home level or church level, we need to know what are our needs and our wants. You, as Jennifer said, you need to calculate, okay, I know I do tomatoes. My family is more salad family. We do less meat. We do more vegetables. So you'll be looking at planting what you need to meet that need. If it is that you're a person who are now going into this and you're not knowledgeable, as you said, Rev, we're looking at what is your skill level. There's some people who just don't do anything with soil. That's just not their area. Some have an altitude insects and so forth. So, I need to get my gloves. But somebody who's more hands-on is, okay, I don't have that, but if you teach me how to do this, I can get that done. And then you seek advice from the knowledgeable persons. The assessment itself into the needs and the wants, and not only in what you consume, but the needs also in terms of the program and where we can source those needs from. Can we source it within our own congregation, or do we need to source that from someone outside? So that's something we can look at. I concur with Jennifer, what she's saying. Once we assess what we consume, we know what we need to produce. Once we assess ourselves to know what are my levels or what I can and can't do, where do I seek the advice to assist me that part is concerned? And definitely, I believe here that us as a church organization, as a faith-based organization, we are poised, we are in such a position that we can affect this type of program. I think it was mentioned before, they said that we are in contact with the community. We are in everywhere. We are in schools, we are in the doctor offices, because all those persons come to our church to worship. And more past that, we are a caring community, meaning that we look out for our members. So it is nothing new that we were doing now in this COVID. It is just the way we do it. That will be the difference. And you said it already, it's our mandate. It is as part of who we are as a church.
Mm-hmm. What else is involved in this here? Because I want somebody to walk away from this discussion saying, okay, I realize this food security, and so I need food security, and these are some steps that I need to take. Is there anything that has to be done with the individual person to move forward? Jennifer?
I think definitely now in this context where we are, I think persons have already started making that assessment. The access to the food, even though it's a basic right, you can have access, but the food is not available, or not available in enough for what your needs are. So then you need to find a method. Do I produce, or am I going to spend the exorbitant amount of money to get it? So once you've now started doing that assessment, you can then say, okay, well, I have a backyard. It may not be the big yard that I have, but it's concrete, so I can do maybe some plants in some pots. The example Jennifer gave already about having, you may do 3 tomato plants every 3 months to ensure that you have food to cover during that time. You may do some sweet peppers. But a lot of times we have things within our own household that we can use to create the garden that we need. We buy ice cream, the kits, cooking oil, Clorox bottle, cans, tires that we take off our vehicles. We can use all of those as a way of producing within the context of our own yard. You don't have the large yard space, but you can have them. And it is that with that small kind of home garden idea, you can create a small sustainable garden within your own area. It gives you exercise. It's good, it's therapeutic to go in your own garden and plant and so forth, and you're producing your own food. So it's also very healthy. Persons just need that small hands-on help. And if it's something as simple as maybe growing some sweet peppers, we as a church, we can supply them with that. We can supply the technical through our own members or someone we can connect with. And we can assist in terms of what it is or how it is that they can have that done.
Okay, Jennifer?
All that Lindbergh says ties it together. I think what is the important thing, there's 2 levels it can happen. after tonight, after this session, there are individuals who say, wow, never thought about that. And there are individuals, those individuals will actually go out. But you know, my sister's cousin did agriculture, that my father's brother supposed to have animals down south. And so they'll seek out that person and get the advice, and it literally going like going to a doctor. This is Dr. Producer, this is my backyard. This is my family and my household. This is how much eggs, chicken, beef, cow, lettuce and tomato that we eat. Dr. Producer, what can we do? There are books all over, there are people in the world who sell the square foot garden book. But the square foot garden is for the nice, flat Florida housing development yard, and you measure it out. Very few of us that need that support have that kind. So it is really about the person who is the quick and get up and action person, who's going to find somebody that they know, bring them to the yard, and they're going to sit down and we are going to plan. But there's also the person who doesn't have that access. And that is where the church is, for me, I'm less concerned about the church providing seedlings. And I'm more about the church being the information and resource broker. Okay. So that because you really don't want Reverend Algernon and Reverend Adrian running back and forth every weekend to buy seed and running back and forth to get the truck of soil and to find somebody to do the watering. That's not what the church would need in this. The church is the information broker, the motivator, the encourager, the avenue for bringing the person who needs advice to the person who gives advice. So, and that is why it's important that this thought is happening at the congregation level. Because as I said, there is the one who's going to run out, and by next week Sunday, they're going to be coming to ask for you to bless their garden. But then there's the other person who wants to try it, but doesn't want to know, doesn't know how and doesn't know where. And the church needs to plan and organize its information brokerage role so that that person can get the support. And so...
Right, that's an excellent thought. That's an excellent thought in terms of the church being that kingpin, linking all these other areas together. What about where churches have lands?
Okay. There are two ways of looking at that. The church can determine that it wishes to become a farmer, but the church is going to need a farm manager. And so do we use that tract of land? Do we get somebody to come and manage it? The question is, can the person who can manage it afford to manage it as a volunteer effort? So will we need a salary for that person? And so that can be one approach where the church itself gets members or staff, creates a staff to operate a farm. And this is going to be skilled people. It's going to need, it wouldn't necessarily need in the initial stages to have a tractor, because the tractor services can be rented. It might need to get a tank and have water brought in. So that is one option. The other option, there are options that people have mentioned forming of cooperative groups. I'm not certain I don't know about the other islands, but for the Antigua situation, by the time you get the cooperative started, people have worn out and COVID would finish and they will forget that they need food security. So I wouldn't necessarily say, let's form the farming group. But what I would say is where there's church land, make it available the same way that certainly in some places, people are able to lease land from private individuals. Let that land be available at maybe the paperwork of the lease to the members or the households that have an interest. And what would be, so when you would go that route, you would be looking at saying that the land is available, working with the professionals to determine what is the way that it should be divided for the users, recruiting the users, training the users, giving them that non-formal adult education in how to produce, whether it is plants or animals or bees or whatever, such that you have a group of a number of people doing this production in a particular physical location that can in fact strengthen their ability to be the marketers of their own produce. Because instead of you having two people in the church in Jennings and two people in the church in Seaview Farm and two people somewhere, if there's a 20 acres somewhere that has many that can access it, have it, and are working it, and when they start to harvest, let us call it the Moravian food security farm becomes the Moravian food security farm market. And so there's beginning to be now a community of producers around this location. That kind of group, collective, joint functioning can itself begin to spin off into the need for joint harvesting, joint processing, joint packaging, joint whatever. So that the idea of, for example, a honey extractor and bottler doesn't come from somewhere off the top of somebody's head. It comes from the honey production that is happening in that farm, that farm, yes, the community farm, and the presence of the bees help to pollinate, so that the yields of the plants requiring pollination is greater. And by the time those are generated, the skills of somebody in that congregation, not necessarily the planter, but the juice maker, comes in and starts to make the cucumber, honey, ginger beer. And so in the first harvest, you're selling honey in a bottle, cucumber in a bottle, a cucumber in a bag, and melon in a bag. By the next cycle, you're actually having honey, fresh cucumber, and cucumber ginger drink. And so that it begins to build. So not only are you producing, you're building camaraderie, you're strengthening the community spirit, ideas are being spawned, because now we now have this lady that say, but I have pumpkin, and this one has cucumber, and this one has ginger, and this one has sorrel. Next news you hear we have a sorrel ginger cucumber punch that nobody ever thought of, and it might sound strange, but we might be more tasty than we can imagine. And all of that comes from the fertilization of the minds, of the skills working together on that piece of church land.
Right. We are running out of time. Brother Lindbergh, you want to just drop anything in there quickly?
I concur with what Jennifer is saying. As a faith-based church with a piece of land, put it on the production. And even the example that she gave in terms of how it can be done, that is exactly what I was thinking along that same line. Because a tractor come to plow, it's communal area, you got it to share for everybody. What you're producing, whether it is you're looking at selling outside of our church community, or even selling within our church community, that does create some level of sustainability and does create some food security for us. So I concur with all that Jennifer was saying just now. Okay.
I think one of the things that you said earlier, but it sort of got, lost is not the word, but lost in the midst of the discussion, is the whole need for that change of mind and change of attitude towards this whole thing of agriculture. Because some people listen to this discussion and say, I don't have any time for that. No, I can't be bothered with this agriculture, food and security. But when you begin to realize that if it were a war of some kind, that the ships couldn't come, and if things really, really get bad, that America starts saying, no, we are not sending our food out because we're going to need it. then we realize that we would be up the creek without a paddle. And so we're going to need to feed ourselves. And so we're going to have to learn to eat yam, whether we like yam or not, and eat pumpkin if we like pumpkin or not, because that is what we have. Or we're going to have to put it in a way that makes it easier for us to consume. So the matter of food security through all of this, you're saying, is very, very important. And it hits all of us in the right place because we all have to eat. All this fancy taste that we have with the things that have to be imported, we will have to adjust those tastes, because when those things are not available, we have to go and eat what we produce. There's a thing that they're talking nowadays about from farm to table. What I'm hoping from this discussion is that this, as I said before, that somebody's mind will be sparked. But more than that, that as a church, we will have some stuff going on. I'll tell you this much, that, and I'm putting him on the spot, Reverend Nigel Daniel has been doing some work in farming in Tobago itself. And so we're going to have him on at another time with pictures of what they're actually doing, so that we can see some of that stuff. And I want you also, Jennifer and Lindbergh, to be part of this discussion, because you started talking about, okay, you can cut off a Clorox bottle, a bleach bottle, or a ice cream pan, and you can grow your stuff in that. All the creative ways in which we can do things. Because somebody said, I live in a clay area, my soil doesn't produce a lot of stuff. So maybe then we have to now give people the ideas and that training so that they can say, hey, this is something that I can do. We really want this to be a conversation about, yes, faith and wellness and health, as we realize that COVID-19 is throwing up all these things to us to say to us, you need to get busy, you need to get active, you need to do more than just sit where you are and wonder what is going to happen next. So I want to thank you, Lindbergh Bell from Zion and St. Kitts, and Jennifer Maynard from Ebenezer Methodist here in Antigua, for sharing of your wealth of experience. Both of you are in agriculture. I've studied this for most of your lives, even though your ages are slightly variable. Jennifer is an urban, not urban, is a rural
development specialist.
Rural development specialist. And Lindbergh, you are, what's your terminology, agriculturalist?
I'm a well-paid farmer. I'm school's agricultural coordinator, so still in the field.
Agricultural coordinator. And
Yes.
so both of you have brought those things together that span the whole world. This is not just planting, this is animal husbandry, this is all the other facets of agriculture that we're talking about.
Yes.
If you're watching this and you were just even piqued a little bit, you want to get more information, reach out, send a note in the chat. Jennifer is available, Lindbergh is available. We can have this conversation, we can have this training, we can talk to the people so as to make sure you can do what can be done. You can get your 5 seeds and 3 eggs or what have you that you need to put together, and they can give you the know-how so that we can work towards food security. It's not something that happens overnight. I like the fact that you said that, Jennifer. It's a layered thing. We are building, and over a process of time, we'll get to where we need to be. So thank you again. And if you were listening to this discussion, whether by Facebook or YouTube, and you're interested, you want more information, reach out to us as Moravian Church in your Moravian community. Send a note as you watch it, send a note in the chat, because we go back to the chats to see what people are saying, and we want to answer those questions. Thank you for sharing. Again, I am Reverend Algernon Lewis. I'm chairman of the Provincial Elders Conference of the Moravian Church, and we're pleased to bring you this program. Next program, which will be today's Thursday, next week Tuesday, we're gonna skip the agriculture. We're gonna go agriculture probably next week, Thursday again. We will have a group of students on who were supposed to have walked in their graduation, but didn't walk because of what COVID did. I want to talk to them, want to talk to their generation, hear how their feelings, how COVID is hitting them. If you have a student who is in that position, we want you to invite them to be part of that discussion. So thank you again for joining us. Have a good evening, and may God continue to bless you. Bye-bye.
Welcome.
Bye.